Pete Jensen from NHL.com, replacing Bill Lindsay for one segment because we want to get out of reality for a moment, go to the fantasy world, the Fantasy 411, on the expansion draft. Now we have a real live Las Vegas franchise with a fully loaded roster. Before we dig into some of the players, how do you think they did in the expansion draft?
Yeah, I think they have some holes at center, no question about it. I think their defense has some some players they can plug in, some veterans and also some youth. And I think they're going to have a very stable goaltender in Marc-Andre Fleury. A lot of question marks, though, as far as their number one center, where they're going to get the goal scoring from. Obviously, two guys right at the top, Marchessault, 30-goal scorer from last season, and James Neal, who we all remember from the Predators' run to the Cup final. So he's been a dynamic goal scorer over the years. And I just think they're, they're working not only for the present, but also for the future in terms of all the draft picks that they've been able to acquire.
So the way that I look at this is, for example, someone like James Neal. It wasn't his best season, right, this past season. Yeah. He's 29 years old. Is this someone who I should definitely value more so than last year because he'll get more opportunities with this team?
I think he definitely will, because we saw last season with the Nashville Predators, he was playing a lot of power play time, but he was not playing first line with Ryan Johansson. He was not obviously playing with Evgeny Malkin, who he played with in 2011-12 when he scored 40 goals and had 40 assists in a breakout season. So I think that getting him back into a top-line role means that he should get you 30-plus goals this season. And on the power play, certainly a threat for 20 to 25, whereas he only had, in the 15 range this season. So I like Neal getting a little bit of a bump going to Vegas in this expansion draft.
And some of his status, fantasy-wise, has to do with Vadim Shipachyov, because he comes over here, he's 30 years old. Out in Russia, in the KHL, he's one of the best players in the league. But we have never seen him in the NHL yet. Could this be the next Radulov in the NHL and make a huge impact?
Yeah, Radulov had some NHL experience to fall back on in his transition, so I think it's an even bigger question for Shipachyov as we move forward with this Vegas lineup. I mean, they had some other reliable centers, Eric Howla, Cody Eakin, to name a few, William Karlsson. Nice little players, but not number one center caliber. So the door is going to be open here for Shipachyov to potentially get into the 55, 60-point range as early as this season. He has a 2-year contract and a boatload of upside. So he's in his prime right now, and I like what he could potentially bring to the table here for the Golden Knights as they kick off their first season and kind of we're going to see if they're able to contend right off the bat. I mean, I think right off the bat, looking at them compared to some other teams in the West, probably a little bit better than Colorado, Vancouver, and Arizona right now from top to bottom. So that's a start.
Vegas fans love to hear that, and when they hear someone like Jonathan Marchessault joining this team, and this is someone who had a breakout season, we just saw a 30-goal scorer, he joins this squad, do you think that he continues to blossom, or did he have more help with Florida so his points, or at least his assists for sure, could go down?
Well, he really thrived during the time when Florida was without Alexander Barkov and Jonathan Huberdeau, and then he was able to sustain that over the course of the season. So I think, his shooting percentage was a little high. It was about 15%. Maybe that goes down a little bit. He goes into the 25-goal range, 20 to 25. But he should have more assists. He should be more involved on the first power play unit for the entirety of the season. And, Marchessault, I think, just has an opportunity here going into a contract year where he can continue to blossom. He reunites with Gerard Gallant, who coached him for a couple of, month and a half at the beginning of last season.
They're familiar, somewhat.
Before he was fired, he had about 17 points in 22 games under Gallant. So I think there's something to look at with that familiarity in terms of the two of them moving forward to this new season.
And we're going to talk to Gerard Gallant very soon. And by the way, he's familiar with someone like Marc-Andre Fleury. If he was watching this past postseason and postseasons of the past, he's got to be excited with the guy that he has in net. And I think that's probably one of the major reasons why you're talking about a team that's not going to be at the bottom of the league to start the season when Flower is your main guy between the pipes.
Yeah, pretty amazing they were able to get him. They probably could have gotten 2 quality goalies if they wanted to, but I think they set the stage here for Fleury to be the face of the franchise, to bounce back from an off regular season where he was kind of the backup to Matt Murray, and feed off the momentum from the postseason where he was so good, 6-1 shooting, facing more than 35 shots on goal, which is outstanding. And he's going to need to stand on his head a little bit for the Golden Knights for them to be relevant, and for him as far as fantasy relevance, I mean, you look at his ability to win 30-plus games in the past, he'll be tested. He's going to play 55, 60, 65 games this season for the Golden Knights, you know, when it's all said and done. So, yeah, he's used
in the past
to that
couple seasons,
earlier in his career,
yes.
No doubt. But,
he's
yeah, we're going to see if the 32-year-old if he's still got it.
Yeah, and if anyone had him in, say, a keeper league and they held on to him, finally they're going, yes, it's paying off again. I have Flowers. So that's a good sign. Now, I want to go back to the trade that Bill and I addressed at the top of the show. Jordan Eberle and Strome switching spots. Which side do you like better?
I like Eberle with the Islanders a lot better. I would invest probably close to a top 100 overall pick on Jordan Eberle, whereas he was outside the top 175 prior to this trade in our rankings on NHL.com. So he's a guy that had 76 points a number of years ago. He's a three-time 60-plus point guy. 14 power play points last season. Not bad considering he had the lowest power play ice time per game since his rookie season. Obviously had a really brutal playoff. He only had 2 points in 13 games. So he was in dire need of a change of scenery. He was not playing on a line with Connor McDavid for most of this season. So you look at what he could bring to the table. I think it's good stuff for the Islanders, who have not given Tavares much help over the years, and I think they've done that here. And Ryan Strome, more of a sleeper if you target him later on in the game, you know, 15th round or later. So Ryan Strome, former 50-point guy, he's got some upside, but he's going to be needing to play with either Draisaitl or McDavid to eclipse 50 points again.
So numbers up or down for somebody like Strome if you're projecting out right now? Will they be up from last year or down from last year?
I think it'll be up. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a career high, but I would say probably 45-point range for Ryan Strome, whereas Jordan Eberle's point ceiling is 70-plus, and certainly realistically in the 60 to 65-point range after only 51 this regular season.